works a lot. He works a lot.
Exactly.
But in the fall, like something will go wrong in his day. He'll think he's going to make a million, and something will go wrong with his harvesting, and all of a sudden he's like, yeah,
Hold on.
yeah.
Do you want to get
Mine
started?
is on silent, but here it's not a big deal because they put everything up. But sometimes I lose my.
All right, we will go ahead and get started here. I got 6:30. We'll go ahead with roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Maria Mason?
Here.
Lisa Kansas?
Here.
Chad Krieger?
Here.
Gary Spielman?
Here.
Joanne Kosowski? Here.
All right, join me in the pledge. All right, we have minutes from the regular meeting on November 8th and special meeting on November 15th.
I move for approval of the November 8th regular meeting minutes and the November 15th special meeting minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second then to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting on November 8th and special meeting on November 15th. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right. Thank you for all of you that are here. Also, all those that are watching on the YouTube channel as well. Appreciate you being with us tonight. With that, we do have 2 people signed up for public comment. So, in recognition of the privacy rights of individuals and employees of the district, the Board of Education prohibits any public comment on individual employees or constituents of the district and on matters in which the employee or constituent may be identified or inferred from the comments. The Board of Education will generally not discuss or take action on non-agenda items brought up by the public at this meeting. With that, we'll start out with Renee.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me have the opportunity to speak. My name's Renee Davis. Do I introduce myself? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Renee Davis. I have a son in 3rd grade in the school district who struggles with reading, and that's the reason I'm here to speak tonight, to talk about kids that are at 3rd grade, or the 3rd grade level is a really important time for kids, because kids who can't read well by 3rd grade are four more times likely to drop out of school than their peers. Now, when we look at our district's reading scores, only about 33% of our students read with proficiency. And that makes me super sad, because that means almost 60% of kids cannot read. So how are our kids being taught to read? Is the science of reading methods being used to teach our kids to read? From my experience, the answer to that is no. We're not alone in the struggle. I read about this every day. While I don't understand a lot of it, I'm learning more and more. But what I've discovered thus far is communities that do move towards the science of reading have more successful readers in their districts. So what is the science of reading? It's research that the reading experts, especially cognitive scientists, had conducted on how we learn to read. The body of knowledge over 20 years in the making has helped debunk older methods of reading instructions that were based on tradition and observation and not evidence. So phonics is based on the science of reading, which indicates students need explicit instruction in the essential components of reading: phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. The key difference between the science of reading approach and alternatives is phonics. The phonics approach teaches children to begin reading by manipulating sounds and words or sound outwards. What I find is being used more is balanced literacy approach. And this is from earlier whole language approach, which assumed that children learn to read if they're given good books and taught cues and strategies to support their reading, such as looking at the picture or the context. Although balanced literacy programs now typically claim to incorporate some phonics, they usually don't align with the more sequential approaches of the phonics-based program. What's more, including some phonics is not only less effective, it's actually not effective at all. Balanced literacy strategies like 3 cueing are fundamentally at odds with teaching phonics. So when we teach our kids to look at the picture and figure out the word, that's not reading. The problem is that although giving children multiple strategies for figuring out unknown words may intuitively seem like a good idea, cueing methods do not complete or complement phonetic reading, but rather contradict it by pulling children's attention away from the specific sequence of letters in a word. So what are we going to do about our reading scores? I think it should be flipped, that 60% of our kids should be reading with proficiency. So that's the question I posed to you guys tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Renee. Steve?
Hi, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak again. I have several topics to talk on, share my perspective. From the business meeting that we had back in November about the projects coming up in 2022, 2023, I just have some thoughts on a couple of those topics. Knowing some of the maintenance men and the maintenance manager and some of our biggest businesses in Wisconsin, talk to them a little bit about replacing roofs and how they approach that subject. And I'm not sure I understood fully our approach, but this is some ideas that if we are replacing the roofs on a schedule of every 15 to 20 years based on the warranties, I personally don't know any homeowners that do that look at the warranty on their shingle and then replace their roof at 25 years. Okay, I have to replace the roof. Is there a process that's done to do that? If you were replacing a roof every 25 years based on the warranty, that would be 4 times in 100 years. If you had a different process and looked at that roof and maybe only did it every 30 years, you save one whole roof replacement every 100 years for the community. And I know it's tough being a steward of the community's money, the taxpayers' money. There's a lot of hard decisions, and you're given this. So this is just perspective for the board to consider. Are there maintenance guys that would be qualified to look at the roof and evaluate it and say, yes, we have 2 or 3 more years? Could we bring a roofer in to look at it? Maybe that's already being done, but just some perspective on those funds. The other perspective I had was on the softball field, looking at, taking $850,000 and putting it into a softball field. Have we looked at partnering with Votech because of the proximity of their ball field? Can we partner with them? Can we schedule it and use that facility? Can we install lights? Can the city invest some money? Is that a viable option? It hasn't been looked at. I don't know the answer to that question. But before spending that $850,000 on a softball field, is there undue hardship because we don't have it? Are there softball games that we're turning away because we don't have it? Just some thoughts on that one. Return to school. We've been under the same COVID return to school policies since the beginning of the pandemic, since 2020, as I understand. So currently, if a student tests positive, they have to quarantine for 14 days or for 10 days, and then they can come back 10 days after their positive test. But a child that's in the same household can't come back for 14 days after the 10 days has run for the kid that's positive. Now, I don't know any scientific basis for that. It just is nonsensical to me to have a child in the same home exposed to the same viral load as the one that's sick, but the sick one can come back 10 days after their positive test, but the other kid in the house can't come back for 14 days after the sick kid returns, if you're following me. So I'd like to ask the board just to review that policy. What science is that based on? And I just saw that the Democratic governor of Colorado issued a statement today that the pandemic, the crisis, the emergency of COVID-19, they're declaring it over in Colorado. I think there's going to be more states that follow, and when there's a disease that is treatable, it has statistics roughly the same as the flu. Now, I shared with you guys in September, October, November, Department of Health statistics from the Wisconsin State website that there are 0 deaths of any kids 0 to 19. Now, generally, we know that those younger kids have more robust immune systems. There are over-the-counter medications that boost immune systems. I'm not going to get into all that, but it's treatable. And why, when Renee got up here and was talking about the reading, my own kids struggled with reading. And having a mask on multiplies that. And at that age, the kids in the elementary schools, I hope that the board is reconsidering getting rid of the masks for the elementary kids. I hope that's on the agenda. But that I kind of led into that, but again, those were the statistics. You know, the mortality rates for suicide are up. You know, kids can't communicate, they can't share their emotions. And one of the things that I think gets missed is that even though this virus is contagious, I would say so are smiles. So I'd like to see some kids smiling again in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, that moves us on to announcements, 7.1.
The board may recess into closed session per Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss and possibly take action regarding the employment of a specific employee. The board will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
All right, thank you, Bev. That moves us on to the agenda. Could we get an adoption motion?
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right. Reports by admin, starting out with 9.1, School of the Month presentation, Prairie View.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, and thank you to our Prairie View families and staff who are here in support and also watching from home. I tend to overplan these things, so I'm going to try and be as quick and brief as I can. I'm not usually one for words, but apparently when I stand up in front of people, I just love to hear myself talk. So if you need to cut me off, just give me a sign here. So start out just some brief overview and background of some demographics over the last 5 years for Prairie View. You can see, as we've noted, as a district in prior board meetings, our enrollment has gone down a little bit. Our percentage of students economically disadvantaged has gone up and down over the last 5 years, has remained relatively steady. Population of students with disabilities has gone down over the last 5 years, and then you can see our ELL population has remained quite steady over the last 5 years. So just some basic demographic information for you tonight. Just some brief call-outs for Prairie View. We are a 3-section school, K through 5, so we have 3 classrooms in all of our grade levels K through 5. We also have early childhood and 4-year-old kindergarten, both AM and PM sessions at Prairie View. As you know, we have other district sites, school building sites that have EC and 4K as well. And then just like our community, we have a diverse and inclusive student body. So just want to start out by reviewing a little bit of our school success plan objectives and kind of update the board on our progress thus far. So we have 3 objectives, 1 reading, 1 math, and then 1 social emotional learning. So you'll see a lot of similarities between the reading and the math with regards to just some of the language and how the objective is written, as well as some of the action plans, because there are certainly some things that we're doing instructionally that work both in reading and math. So for reading, our goal is to increase the proficiency of our students that are mid or above grade level on the iReady assessment by 3% in both comprehension literature and comprehension informational text. And that's, again, measured by the iReady diagnostic. And we're comparing spring to spring. So looking at spring of 2021, and we're looking to raise that proficiency percentage by 3% when we take the assessment in May of 2022. Our subgroup is our students with disabilities. That is one of our needier subgroups, so we're focusing on that group as well, and looking to have 90% or more of those students growing at least 2 grade levels within those comprehension domains. Some action steps that we're just to highlight tonight for our reading. You'll see here, these are not all of them. These are just some that wanted to highlight tonight. If it's yellow, it indicates that we are in progress with that. It's certainly not something that we have mastered yet. We still have half the school year. If it's green, it's something that we're regularly doing right now. So you can see we're using a regular process during collaborative team time, so when our grade levels meet once a week to look at data and student artifacts. And we'll talk a little bit more about that process in a little bit, a couple slides. We have a specific protocol that we're following with our teams. We're also utilizing the workshop model to pre-teach or reteach content to students who are struggling with our standards that we've deemed essential. So this is more of like a tier 2 support within the classroom. So this is all of our students are getting access to tier 1, which is that high quality core instruction. And then tier 2 is all students have access, but not all students might need it. It just depends on the essential standard and what the assessments are showing students might need extra support with. We've done some targeted PD aligned with comprehension best practices, and we're going to continue to infuse that as reading for our building. Comprehension is certainly an area of need, and reading is a little bit more of a need than math at this moment. Using common formative assessments to check for proficiency and how we're aligning those to our essential standards. And then staff are discussing in their collaborative teams how students are doing on specific standards versus just here's an overall, this student got an 80% or this student got a 90%. We're really drilling down to the specific standards. So that's something that staff have been working really hard at. We've also had some utilizing standards mastery assessments within iReady. It's just another format of assessment that we use to assess how students are doing on specific standards. It's one measure. And then we've done some learning walks, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So how are we doing proficiency-wise? So staff are tracking monthly using a reading comprehension assessment that's classroom-based. And our students for October, so as of November 1st, we were at 53% proficient. Dipped a little bit below for the month of November to 48%. So we talked as a staff during our in-service last week about how we can continue to see that number grow. Our students with disabilities proficiency dipped more than we want. So we're targeting some things with our special educators and how to make sure that we're increasing the proficiency of our students with disabilities. For math, it's a very similar goal, 3% proficiency, but we're focusing on the numbers and operations domain within iReady. And again, it's spring 2021 to spring 2022. And once again, our subgroup students with disabilities, we're looking for 90% or more to grow at least 2 grade levels in that specific domain. And for numbers and operations, that's, I'm going to say it simplistically, there's obviously a lot more to it, but it's your basic facts, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and being able to use those facts to solve word problems, to solve equations. So that's been an area for us that we need to continue to grow in. Action steps. I'm not going to read through all of them because a lot of them are very similar, just a couple that I want to call out. The third one, number talks. If those of you that were here last year for our presentation, that was some of the videos that we showed last year of how we're engaging students in talking about solving those addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division problems and sharing their solution strategies with one another. So we're continuing that. And then again on the bottom, some extra math daily to promote fact fluency. It's one of the ways we have students regularly practice their facts. Teachers infuse, some rocket math materials, which we've used in the past, or flashcards. So, but extra math is one of the ways that we do that at our buildings. For proficiency, math was relatively steady. Again, this is based on classroom assessments. So 73% proficient in October, and then 71 in November. And actually, our students with disabilities proficiency went up, which was great to see. I'm now going to, I haven't been following along on my cheat sheet here, so I haven't reminded myself where I need to be. I'm now going to turn it over to Caitlin Dwyer, our associate principal. She'll talk about our third objective.
Hello, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about our SEL and our student connectedness goal. So our student connectedness goal is by May of 2022, we will increase our connectedness score by 1700s to 3 and 1800s, which was the average of comparable schools. And that's as measured on the spring 2022 school perception survey. So right now we are giving this survey the same 4 questions to students in grades 2nd through 5th grade. And then we are looking at that data each month to kind of see where we're at. So this is just 5th grade data. So as of December 1st, our score was just 3, compared to 3 and 1700s as of November 1st. So as you can see, the 4 questions that we ask: I feel I belong at this school, my classmates care about me, I feel comfortable participating in class, and then I participate in 1 or more clubs, sports, and activities. The one that we are really focusing on, especially with our older grades, is my classmates care about me. This is an area that we are the lowest, so we have talked during our collaborative times and as an SEL team as to how to increase student-to-student connectedness and what that might look like in the classroom. So these are some of the pictures of some of the activities that we are doing with our students each and every day. So in the first picture you can see those are our positive office referrals. So students get referred to the office by their teachers or other staff in the building for showing the Panther way of being respectful, responsible, or safe. They then get a phone call home from admin, and then they get to be recognized in front of their entire class. The second picture you can see is our Kids in the Kitchen, where the students can sign up to participate in some cooking activities after school. And then the third is our PV Unity Tree. So this is all the students got leaves that were sent home, and they filled out ways that they could be kind, and they were added to the tree in our school cafeteria. Back to Mr. Krause.
It's a little song and dance for you. So how are staff committing to the growth and achievement of all of our students and to each other? One of the big things, is part of it's not written specifically in our mission and vision, but it's a belief that we have as a staff that all students can learn, and all students can learn because of what we do. So that's kind of our guide along with our mission and vision as we serve our students and families each day. A couple of things that we're doing different, which I know you've heard a lot about, so I won't speak exhaustively on it, but just revamping kind of our RTI model and our workshop model to make sure that we're incorporating more regular time for students to have access to supports as it relates to our essential standards. We've also been engaging in professional development. As I mentioned, we've done some comprehension best practice professional development, and in November and then through February during our in-service time, our staff is engaging in a book study on our assessment practices and how we can better align our assessment practices to assess student learning as it relates to the essential standard work and learning target work that our teams have done pretty much since this time last school year. We also have a school-wide intervention team, which consists of pupil services, admin, ELL, literacy support teachers. We come together every week to review our student intervention data to look at behavior, academics, attendance, and plan interventions and supports around the data that we're seeing. We've also been blessed with Selena Alvin this year. She's one of our CNI coaches for the district. She supports Prairie View and Lincoln. So I'm going to turn it over to her to just touch on the last 2 pieces, just what she does specifically to support our learners and staff in the growth of our school success plan.
Good evening. So like Mr. Kraus said, I've been lucky enough this year to work with Prairie View and Lincoln. I started the year with Prairie View. Some of the big parts of my role revolve around supporting all staff through professional development. So on those in-service days where kids are home, I get to work with staff on reading and math strategies, which is an awesome part of my job. Another thing that I do is send out a weekly newsletter to all of those staff with best practice strategies and things that they can be doing in their classroom to try new things on a weekly basis. I also get to support staff through collaborative teams. So as Mr. Kraus said, they meet weekly for collaboration groups, and I get to be a part of those. During that time, we go through what's called the teaching and assessing protocol. And I know I wasn't there for it, but I know when the school board visited Prairie View, you got to see 4th grade go through some of that process. It's been an awesome process for us this year to be able to really look at the 4 questions of the PLC. And those 4 questions are, what do we want our students to know and be able to do? How will we know if each student has learned it? How will we respond when some students do not learn it? And how will we extend the learning for students who have demonstrated proficiency? So as we look at upcoming units for math and ELA, we go through those questions and look at what those assessments are going to look like. How are we going to have those conversations about what proficiency is and make sure that we're doing it the same across the district? So I think that's been a really, really beneficial thing for our teachers to work through. Another thing that I get to do is support individual teachers through individual coaching cycles. So during that time, we set a student-based goal. We have baseline data, and then during about a 6-week cycle, we focus on that one particular goal. And I get to co-teach with teachers, I get to co-plan, I get to be in their classrooms to see what they're doing, I get to work with students. It's an awesome process, and then the best part is we get to do that post-assessment and see the growth that those students have made, and it's just amazing to see what they can do, and the teachers gain a lot of confidence by seeing that short-term goal as well. They don't have to wait till the end of the year to see how their students are doing. So that's really, really awesome. And then the final thing that I get to do is this year, it's brand new, is I get to do some math intervention groups. So I get to work with some tier 3 kiddos, pulling some groups of kids that need that extra support. It might be a couple grade levels below in some overall areas, and I get to pull them and work usually 4 days a week with them from 20 to 30 minutes using a program that we have called Number Worlds. And it really is hands-on, game-based. The kids are excited to come with me. It's not, oh, we have to go with her today. It's, oh, we get to go play a game and learn something in the process. So it's been really, really great getting to work with Prairie View. Like I said, I'm at Lincoln right now, and then at semester, I switch back to Prairie View again, and I get to start all over again with some new teams and some new teachers. But in the meantime, I get to meet with everyone in the district during professional development days, so it's been a great experience.
So these are just some pictures of last Monday the 6th, our staff engaging in the professional development on the assessment practice book study. So teachers got in, all certified staff got into groups. They were all experts on one chapter, and then they came together to present their new learning to the rest of the staff so we could all benefit from reading. Everybody has the book, so everybody can read it when they want, but when we do our professional development, staff are just jigsawing the chapters, and so we'll continue to do that in January and February. Some other things we're doing to promote school culture and engagement. You can see there's some pictures there, some Halloween. We had some pesky Dalmatians that were running around our campus on October 30th, so Horace and Cruella had to rein them in a little bit. We also have some of our staff. You can see orange. We all wore orange for National Kindness Day. You can see we wear kindness t-shirts, and we staff just really engage and love matching and working with one another to increase our culture. And it linked in there is a Daily Citizen article from last week. You may have read it. Feel free to read it. Sorry, I'm quoted and I'm shy. So we were just talking about that board in the middle there, how we're staying connected as a staff. So one of the things that COVID created was, because we were needing to be so separated and cohorted, we weren't as connected as we have been in the past. So just infusing some things with our staff to stay connected. I'm now going to turn it over to our student council, which I know you want to hear from them more than you want to hear from me. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Dwyer. She'll introduce our student council advisor and some members here to talk to you.
One other part of our SEL goal was creating some student activities. So one of the things that we really wanted to start right away was our student council. So we have some 5th grade student council members here, as well as our student council, what would you say, like leader. So this is one of our 3rd grade teachers. We also have another 5th grade teacher that helps with this, but
hello, my name is Mrs. B, Mrs. Boulder, Mrs. Brandel. I go by a multitude of names these days. But I am, I guess, the advisor along with Abby Devitt. And our goal with creating student council was really to encourage our school success plan and encourage the connectedness of the school and just give students another opportunity to participate in an extracurricular activity. So without any more words, go ahead, Lucy.
Hello, my name is Macy. I'm in 5th grade, and what Student Council has done is the food drive. We collected food by each class.
Hello, my name is Ben, and I'm in 5th grade, and after we collected all the food, we loaded it into trucks.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn, and I'm in 5th grade. I am also a part of the Student Council, and we promoted the food drive with announcements.
Hello, my name's Caleb. I am part of the, I'm part of Student Council too. I'm in 5th grade, and we are really trying to build the Prairie View school community by picking dress-up days. One of the dress-up days we did was Pajama Day, and the other was Sports Day. We are also reading off staff recognitions from students on announcements.
Hi, my name is Leah. I'm a member in Student Council in 5th grade, and some future plans that we have is a coin drive to raise money for a charity to help people in need. Another thing we have in the future is for Earth Day, we will be planting trees to help our community.
Hi, my name is Piper, and I am a 5th grader at Prairie View Elementary. Also, we will help with all school events and PTO sponsor events. Do you have any questions? If not, thank you so much for listening to our presentation.
a big thank you to all the parents that made it possible. For the kiddos to be here, they're very proud. They are some of our great leaders at our school, and we are so grateful for them. Another thing that we do each month is for our school culture and engagement is holding our assembly. So as you can see, Mr. Krause and I with the Oreos on our face for a minute to win it, and neither one of us won. We have the toilet wrapping challenge. We had our grand gobbler and our turkey trot. So this is just something where we get the entire school together. We recognize certain teachers with staff awards, classes with class awards, and it's just a great way to build up that fun and engagement again after the COVID. And now our grand gobbler on here is also here. She is our EL teacher, and she has done some wonderful things to include our ELL population at Prairie View.
Hello, yes, the grand gobbler is here. That was me. My name is Megan Merkel. This is my first year here at Beaver Dam, and I'm one of the 2 English language elementary school teachers for the district, although I primarily work at Prairie View. I also do work at Wilson and Washington. So this is some photos. Me and Betsy Ramsdale, our bilingual family liaison, are working to really increase engagement with our EL English language families. Obviously, there's a language barrier there, so we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to help them feel a part of our community at Prairie View. So it's a 30-minute event, and what we're doing is we're hosting them right before our PTO events. So right before Santa night, we'll have a 30-minute session. Our next one is going to focus on how can our EL parents support their students and try and move past that language barrier. They really want to help their students succeed, and so we gave them a survey of what are future events that you want to have, and a lot of them expressed that they really want to know how they can best support their students. So Betsy and I are working to get them there, and if they come to our event, they get to go for free to our next event. So really trying to get them, and a lot of our students, our English language students, have expressed that they can't always participate in events because of transportation or their parents don't quite understand what's happening. So we've been working really hard to make sure that they feel a part of our community. And so far, we haven't had a ton of families, but we're hoping the ball gets rolling, right? And word of mouth gets around. But we're excited for our next upcoming event on the 22nd.
Thank you.
So finally, just to touch on a few things that we're doing with regards to the community support and how we're working together to support our students and families. We already talked about the food drive. We also have Church Health Services who they come in to support some students via tutoring. And then Dowell & Associates will be coming in to support some students with some mental health support through the mental health grant that we have from the district. Thank you for listening to all of that. It was not 10 minutes. It was in the mirror last night, so I apologize. Any questions from anyone?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. When you mentioned that the kids could be called to the office, but it was for good reasons, that was kind of interesting to me, because that's a scary thought when all of a sudden, please report to the office, you know?
Yes, often the phone calls home are, do I need to come pick my child up? What's wrong? What's going on? So yes, it's a good way to build a positive communication.
Yeah, and on the slide where we talked about that, on the bottom here that says the quote, "Shout out to Prairie View School and all positivity they're spreading," that's a direct quote from one of our parents who posted on Facebook after their child was recognized for the positive referral. And we also do Students of the Month, or very important Panthers, which are our Students of the Month. So, you know, more positive, the better, right?
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
I think I speak for the board, just thanking the students and the parents again for being here.
Yeah, let's give them another round of applause. Thank you. And now they're like, "Can I go home, please?" And so yes, they can. So thank you.
I love dress up days, and I was thinking about maybe the board doing a pajama day, but I didn't know if that was going to be appropriate or not. But no, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. All right, 9.2, District Safety Drills Report.
Good evening. My name is Pete Warwick. I'm the District Facilities and Safety Officer. And I just want to bring your attention to Act 143, which was instituted in 2017. There's 5 requirements that are due to the state of Wisconsin Office of School Safety, which is a department of the Wisconsin Department of Justice. And those 5 things are due at the first of the year, January 1st every year. And the thing, what you saw in your board packet were the school violence drill summaries. Once those are reviewed by the board and signed by the superintendent and the board president, I will upload those into our share file, and we have, like I said, until January 1st to do that. The other 4 things that are already uploaded and ready for submission is their school safety plan. School safety plans need to be updated every 3 years. The last update was 2019, so next year, 2022, we will update all school safety plans, along with another requirement, which is a school safety assessment with the police department, which we, Officer Jones, Officer Carroll, and myself will be doing those after January 1st. Also, school safety training every year, which we did this year in August with reunification tabletop exercise, and then most recent maps need to be uploaded. So all those things will be in as soon as the board reviews and signs. We'll get that submitted and we'll be good to go. Any questions of me?
I have a couple questions, Pete.
Yes.
I noticed on the information on the drills, were the elementary schools doing an administrative hold first and then the lockdown?
Yeah, it's up to whoever this principal wants to do it for that individual building. So yes, they were different in each building.
Okay. And I also noticed that the PA system at Jefferson continues to be an issue. Are we addressing that?
Correct. I just got approval, and we are actually getting that upgraded with new speakers for certain areas and also new amplifiers, so we should be good to go here shortly when it's all installed.
Okay, great.
Other questions, comments for Pete? You're looking for a motion, right, to accept?
Officially receive and approve. Yep.
So if you got your exec summary, if somebody wants to make a motion, that last sentence there.
I'll move to officially receive and approve the confirmation of the drills as submitted by the building administrators as required by Act 143.
Second.
Right, we have a motion and a second to receive and approve confirmation of drills as submitted by the building administrators and required by Act 143. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Pete. 9.3, return to learn update.
Good evening. All right. Another update on the Return to Learn plan and status. So as per usual, we have 3 goals, giving you an update on current community metrics, talking about specific realities associated with our district and other area districts, and then providing an opportunity for questions, comments, and discussion. As far as monitoring within our district boundary, what we see is that we've had an uptick. The next graph that I'll show you will, again, kind of affirm that, but total confirmed cases over the last 7 as of December 9th was 111, which puts a positive 7-day average of 15.86. Again, just to reiterate, that's for the entire district boundary. That is not the district itself. Our meetings continue with the Dodge County Health Department, although some people saw that the Dodge County Health Department's public officer did formally announce her resignation. So I'd like to publicly just thank her for her service and the work that she's done with all the area superintendents in the county. She was always a very valuable resource for us and took up a lot of time doing that. And I know that that sentiment is reflected by the other area superintendents. As far as the numbers are concerned, we look at those in the past, the last couple of updates, you would have seen hospitalization and ICU trajectory as reported by the State Department of Health would have been probably referenced as no change or no significant change. The most recent update or publication that they put out there would indicate that those trajectories are growing. So this graph typically, or where possible, I show 2 graphs. One is this graph that could be printed off from the Wisconsin State Department of Health Services website. Anybody can select any county they want, any district boundary they want, etc. And then I'd also show a second graph, which is from our county specifically published by the county health department. The graph from the county health department was not available for this update, but this is the same data. It's just presented slightly different. This one, I believe, uses less colors, although I can't completely tell. So that is the Dodge County update as of the 9th of December. I think it speaks for itself. School guidance updates, so just to reiterate again, no significant changes to that particular piece. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Omicron and winter. So we know that there's a new variant of concern. It's been talked about, but as I believe the health experts and have widely shared, the most prevalent variant of COVID, and we anticipate there will be multiple other variants at some point in time. But the prevalent form of COVID is from the Delta variant. There's no specific guidance change associated with COVID as it relates to Omicron, which has gotten a lot of conversation, particularly last week. It seems like today it was a little bit more quiet on updates regarding that. And something else to just keep in mind, and you notice I put Omicron in winter. We are anticipating, we have already seen this in our district and other districts have, that there's just a lot of other health-related challenges that we're going to see, perhaps more typical of what we've had to talk about before, where we see other illnesses and things present themselves because there is a much more normal there's much more normal or typical activities taking place in the community. People are traveling more, etc. So we're dealing with some of those other things, whether it be regular cold, sinus infections, norovirus, influenza, etc. It's one of the realities that we navigate is kids getting sick and staff working with a lot of kids, staff getting sick as well. As far as our particular Activity, so what I did for September, I'll probably do the same thing for October next month, is I just kind of summarize those weeks. And then I've laid out every individual week since that September summary. So as of today, 3 staff, 36 students, and the percent positive is 1.03. And then this is from last week's conversation, just a snapshot. I've shared this before, so just some context. November 1 is on the left, December 6th, last week. Week of December 6th is on the right, and that shows percent positive, total percent positive staff and students in different districts in our immediate area. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
So it looks like we're just flip-flopping back and forth, just like where the county's at, basically, what the numbers are looking like from like November to now. We're just kind of range bound.
Yeah, it's like if you were to compare our numbers with like a chart from the county, I think part of that, you know, our community, particularly just because we carry a large portion of the county's population, is probably going to be more reflective of that. Yeah.
So we really haven't had any major upticks per se due to us lifting the mask mandate at the middle and high school, correct?
Well, I can't say for sure that we haven't had anything associated. I mean, I can't directly tie anything to masks or not.
Right, right.
We're seeing increases, I think, like the county as a whole seeing at all age levels. We've seen that at the elementary, we've seen that at the middle. You know, we had some higher numbers about a month ago, and we're seeing those numbers starting to creep back down, which is positive, or good. I guess I should be using the word good. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what is or isn't necessarily playing in, but we haven't seen a specific spike, if that's what you're referencing.
Yeah, that's kind of what.
Associated with the high school or the middle school situation.
I guess the only reason I'm asking is I really would like us to consider maybe lifting the elementary mandate. I don't, you know, I'm not here to debate whether masks work, masks don't work, you know, all that. I just would really like us to see us lift it, and I just personally don't feel in the spot where comfortable telling people that they should be wearing one or shouldn't be wearing one. And it's a little harder for me to support that, having one when, again, like I said in the last meeting, that we don't have anyone else really doing it in the community. I mean, you know, there's no mandates from the county, there's no mandates from the state in that, and I just, seeing the numbers, I think this stuff's here to stay. And I think we're gonna have to start learning how to live with it to a certain extent. And I guess I'm gonna move that we lift the mandate at the elementary level to, and I guess I'm gonna propose that it's highly recommended, but optional at the elementary level. Then that way we got all of our buildings district-wide the same. And I know all of us in this room all have different opinions, and all of us around these tables have different opinions. I honestly don't know what the right answer is. I think if any of us knew what the right answer was, it'd be an easier decision, but I just think it's here to stay, and I do think we kind of got to move on a little bit and focus on other things. Not saying that this isn't important. It's highly important, but we got a lot of other things that we're working on right now too, and I want to start moving forward with some things. So I don't know what anyone else thinks of it, but that's my opinion. So
If you're going to make that motion, I would say that you should wait until after December is over. We had the same issue with a number of parents who said that they were surprised when we took it off from the middle school and the high school, that it was an immediate thing. There was no time for them to react with their children. And so we have a week of school left about, and so say, if that's your motion, I would say you should suggest that it be as of when they return to school following the Christmas holiday.
I'd be open to that. I mean, we only got one more week left, that maybe gives some kids a little time to prepare. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to couldn't have any confusion at all.
Other discussion?
Is that your amendment then,
I
John?
just want to hear the whole motion then.
Yeah.
I'll,
But
well, how many days of school do we got left?
8.
for
8?
8, yeah.
There are
it's
8
Thursday.
left until the holiday, and there are only 14 school days until our next board meeting.
So I think we'd
Okay.
probably want a second if we're gonna amend.
I just,
Or a
Read
new
second.
motion. that gets
I think
us-
I'm just going to leave it effective immediately.
I'll second the motion. I just think, you know, this is one of those things, it's here now. Each family, it should be up to them to decide how they choose to handle it. So I will second the motion as presented, effective immediately.
We have a motion and a second then to change the mandate to highly recommended but optional, and the elementary level to follow the guideline of secondary level. I will ask for a roll call.
Marge Jorgensen,
No.
John Kraus,
Yes.
Mary Coon,
Yes.
Maria Mason,
Yes.
Lisa Panzer,
No.
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Gary Spielman,
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski,
Yes.
Deb Dillon.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you, John. Any other discussion, comments on return to school?
So, Mark, obviously, communication to parents immediately this evening, and then for our school bus transportation, a mask is still required,
No
correct?
change. That is a federal requirement. The board does not have the authority to change
So,
that.
I mean, just so that the clarity goes to all the families involved, that their students need to be respectful of our,
That's on all
Our bus
transportation.
drivers, et cetera,
Buses,
yeah.
vans, et cetera. Yep, we will, following this meeting, have a similar game plan, so we'll work on some communication.
So just reiterating, we have no tolerance for harassment or bullying based on someone's personal choice.
Correct. And the most important thing, just to reiterate with that, is that people let somebody know. So I think that's a great conversation for parents to be able to have, and that's maybe something that we can add into the communication. Specifically, that would go out just to remind students if they're having an issue with that, or somebody's doing something or saying something, that they report it to an adult in the building as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would ask that we make sure that that's communicated.
Mark, can you clarify the quarantine protocols?
Yeah, I will do my very best. Wish I had a nurse on the phone a friend line, because there's some variables I can't necessarily speak to. But generally speaking, what the gentleman that spoke at public comment was accurate in referencing a positive, a confirmed positive would typically be a 10-day quarantine, and then a close household contact would be quarantined 14 days from the time of last contact. So the struggle is, if they're living with the person, they're not able to separate, then they'd be quarantining 14 days post that. Which, if you think about that, 10-day period living with that person, and then 14 on top of that, that can really stack up. So of course, we're talking about that's the particular protocol for people who aren't necessarily vaccinated, right? You know, for people who are able to separate, you know, there's certain things that can be taken into consideration. If you're a close contact and then you become positive before, you know, within that time period, then you would start your own kind of 10-day experience. The nurses do a really good job of navigating those things, having those conversations. It does not mean that people are happy with that news. That standard is the standard recommendation from both our local health department, the state DHS, as well as the federal CDC. I will tell you that it's not followed or employed by all districts. It would depend on the particular district. But I did have a conversation with some of our nursing staff about this. just talking through the prospects of this evening anyway, because the board had referenced at the last meeting that they might be talking about some other things as well. And while the nurses certainly, I think, are doing their very, very best to navigate this, I would support their position that if we were going to look at changing quarantine protocol, that we do that after the holidays. That's one conversation that they talk with me about, so I'd like to be able to support that. And I guess if the board was going to do anything with the quarantine protocol, that they maybe authorize me to have some autonomy to work with our nursing staff to identify protocol that they feel would be appropriate and maybe be no less than the minimum standard we're seeing in districts, which is 10 days, to be honest with you. But give me some time to work with Nicole and Laura and the nurses to talk through that a little bit.
Can you just clarify, you said the minimum 10 days from when?
Contact,
From contact?
period, yeah.
Okay,
That
so,
would be a minimum. So what I'm saying is, I mean, if you're gonna give me autonomy, that's great. I'll do my best with that with the nurses and we can move on. If you wanna talk about it again on January 10th and we wanna get really specific and descriptive here at the board level, we could certainly do that. You know, we got some autonomy last time. I think we did a pretty good job with that. But, you know, they get a lot of heat. It's very frustrating for a family, as you can imagine, depending on the amount of time. But if the board just made a decision relative to masking, I can support a move at some point in time with the quarantines, but, you know, 2 variables in one night immediately, I just think that just gets a little unique. And it's gonna be confusing then for parents and families. If we don't give a heads up, then our nursing staff is gonna be flooded with parents who wanna change that date now, like right now. And I get it. I mean, it stinks. It's like a washing machine of inconvenience and struggle for families. But if we set a date and we know that, or, you know, we move forward with something post-break, for example, we could have something in place, communicate things, give a little bit of front-end notice.
And it varies if you're vaccinated or non-vaccinated.
Yes.
Mark, I think it makes sense to wait until after the holiday, because if we're going to see people in close contact, it'll be during the Christmas holiday, and see what results from that. So I think it's important that we don't make any changes until we get through the holiday and see what happens, and then give you authority to act on that particular change.
I'm actually comfortable giving that authority tonight. You know, I'm not the expert. Our school nurses are the people that we've trusted to guide us through a lot of this, along with Mark's direction and the county's direction. So I'm comfortable supporting that decision be made by you and the school nurses when you feel it's appropriate. I'm assuming it's after break, but it may even be longer. It may need to be a bit after break. So, is that best made in a motion? Or just?
Or would you
an
prefer to
endorsement?
bring it back on
Bring it back.
January
I think we
10th
should
at our
do it
next
in
meeting?
January 10th?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's referenced specifically in the board-approved plan, the quarantine protocols, and then basically it references the public health piece. So if we're gonna be, you know, outside of that, then, you know, I'd want the authority from the board to do that, because that's.
I mean, it sounds unlikely that you would probably make any change prior to after the holiday anyway.
No,
So-
I wanna honor and respect.
With that being said, and I think just to make things cleaner, I would maybe just ask Mark to bring a recommendation forward in January at our January meeting.
For an update on quarantine protocols?
For any changes you might want to make.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Do we
Yeah,
spell out in
And
there?
that meeting is January 10th. We don't spell out a recipe of the days because we knew that they would change, or they could change. But it kind of references, if you look at it, it basically indicates almost industry standard, or we'll even call it like the gold standard is referenced from public health.
It's just, you know, for outside of the district, with the county recommendations, they're vastly different for vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And it would be nice to at least highlight that. You know, I don't know how much you're gonna spell out, but, you know, I was shocked by the difference it is for vaccinated quarantines versus unvaccinated within the household.
So just to be clear, what I'm hearing from the board is on January 10th, provide updated recommendations regarding quarantine protocols. Okay.
Any other comments, questions for Mark? All right, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
9.4, Beaver Dam Area Community Foundation donation. Good evening, Anne Marie.
All right, as you'll probably remember from, we had some discussions last year about partnering with the Beaver Dam Area Community Foundation to establish the Beaver Dam Education Fund that would be used to fund projects through a grant process at the schools within our district. So this is our first year of that. And I'm not going to talk too much about that because I anticipate that we'd bring this back later in the year after these projects have been completed to share with the board. But tonight, what we need to do is to approve the money coming from the education fund itself into the district. So it's kind of a formality. This is what is going to allow us to be able to award the grant money out to the grant recipients. And this is required by our auditors. So we have to approve the money coming in order to be able to run the money through us for this program. And since it is for specifically our schools and our students, we are able to do that. But we would need the approval of the board. So the amount of money that we're talking about that was awarded this year was $12,550. And that was awarded among 8 different approved projects that ranged from $750 to $2,500. So what we would need the approval for, though, is the $12,550 coming into the district.
I make a motion that the school district accept the donation from the Beaver Dam Area Community Foundation for the Beaver Dam Education Fund mini grant process.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the Community Foundation donation as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right, thank you. All right, that moves us to 9.5, recognitions. Anybody have any recognitions they'd like to share out?
I just wanted to comment, this past Saturday, the Beaver Dam Area Orchestra held their Christmas concerts, and it was Rich Zeman's final concert as director of the Beaver Dam Area Orchestra. Rich had been a longtime school employee as band director and music director in different areas, and he has been the director of the community Beaver Dam Area Orchestra for 30 years. Since the founding of the orchestra, we have had 2 directors. The original one was Glenn Wood, and he was there for 35 years, and now Rich has been there for 30 years. And he has, he tendered his resignation. He and Cheryl moved to Hudson, Wisconsin to be closer to family and friends, and especially grandchildren. So it was his last concert. So I just want to recognize him. And also, the other person who's been super in handling things for the orchestra, which I am the board president of, is been our tech person, Greg. He's fantastic to work with. And we, as a school district, can be proud that we have such employees who go the extra mile to help out in different things. So those are my 2 recommendations here.
Anybody else?
I just really want to call out the number of our students and staff that have been involved in community service projects, just really all over the place, and everything from food drives to singing at different community events to marching in the Holiday Lights Parade. It's really become something the community looks forward to see our students involved in all of these things that go on. And I thank all of them and their parents for their generosity with their time and their resources to make that happen.
Anybody else? Mark, you want to add to that?
Well, those are some really good ones. So, I do. I guess I want to recognize parents and students that have raised some concerns about some social media things that are out there with the Instagram platform that's affecting districts all over the state, all over the country, with people basically making kind of, I don't want to say inappropriate, some of them are very inappropriate, but Instagram accounts and taking pictures sometimes without people knowing and posting things. And just like, I think we did a really good job in this community of addressing the TikTok reality that we struggled with in the fall. I think we're going to do a good job of continuing to address that. And I know that our high school team in particular has done some good work talking with kids and promoting people being really positive. But I want to recognize our students and our families that bring that kind of information forward and that help us navigate those things, especially those things that don't have this weird nexus with school. And it really puts districts sometimes in this weird gray area, and it can be challenging to address it. But when people step up and just help promote good behavior and citizenship as a whole, we're able to effectively address those things better. So I want to encourage people to continue to do that, regardless of whatever social media platform might pose a challenge for schools. So just really, really pleased with that. And then a quick shout out. So this weekend, we had a little bit of unique weather. It wasn't quite as exciting as they touted it. But of course, I was doing a neurotic drive around, checking conditions, because we had a big event going on this weekend. And so I messaged Pete and asked him a question about stuff, and he had already taken care of it. And they were going back to look at it a second time. So, just knowing that they're on top of things and being really proactive is really, really helpful, especially when we deal with weekend events. So appreciate that, Pete and his team. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
There, just one other thing. I know Mark informed us of the total amount of food that was collected by all of the schools. That's amazing to me. It was a real reflection on the whole school district. I know Prairie View mentioned how much they did with the collection of foodstuffs, but every single school was amazing.
Yeah, very much. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you for those recognitions. Appreciate everybody sharing out. Then moves us to 10 and 10.1, Board of Education Student Rep Report. Sadie.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about a couple things, mostly at the high school, but also in the district. A couple weeks ago, I don't remember what day it was, the high school had an assembly, and it was, since Mr. Tronson has been here, we've had 2, but before that, I never had any. So we had a speaker come in, and he gave 2 presentations, one to freshmen and sophomores and one to juniors and seniors. And I thought he really hit home. It was really good. He talked about a lot of real-life problems that high schoolers have. So he also had an extra leadership assembly after with kids who were selected by students, and that was really good, too. He got really personal with the students, and he gave us good strategies to help have a better culture at our school. So assembly was really good. Winter sports have also been going. It's really good as an athlete and also as a fan to have fans again and have that energy in the gym. It's really fun. And we're able to do a lot of cool stuff. Also at the high school this week, there's a lot of holiday concerts. The orchestra is tonight. The band is on Wednesday. And then Lincoln and Washington have theirs this week as well. And those are all here. So there's a lot going on at the high school this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Sadie?
Good job.
Very concise report.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Are you looking for lessons, Chad?
All right.
But you meet with Mr. Kraus afterwards. He can help you with that.
All right, we will move on then to 10.2 Ops Committee.
Operations did not meet.
And next meeting for Ops is actually in January, correct?
Correct, because we have another board workshop this month yet, next week. so.
Yep. All right, with that, we'll move on to teaching and learning.
Teaching and learning also did not meet, and once again, our meeting is at the end of January due to the board workshop next week.
All right, and that board workshop is Monday at 6 o'clock, correct? Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, 10.4, any board engagement? Anything anybody wants to share out that they were involved with?
I can start out. I was, along with Mary, went to Prairie View for School of the Month. We had 3 parents that came and visited with several staff members at the same time. And had some really engaging conversations with the parents that were there. And then we went on our tour, and I left all my notes in my pickup truck for went on the tour. But one thing that did stand out was I had the privilege of sitting on some collaboration time with the 4th grade teachers. And, as we said before, all of us have, say, you hear it with presentations like Mr. Kraus did and things like that, but until you actually see it and feel it, it's a whole different ballpark, the ball game. And I never, that I can ever remember, was asked or invited to sit in on a collaboration between the 4th grade classes. And it was really interesting to see that the process that was involved in that, and they were actually talking about a math test that they gave with division and remainders, and how the kids struggled with the remainders, and they were breaking that test down to in all different various ways, and sharing ideas about how they're going to work with their kids that didn't do quite so well on that test, and how they're going to work with the kids that did well, and basically restructuring the whole process, and try to get everyone together and be at the same level as close as possible. So I thought that was really, really interesting. It was really interesting to listen to and to see how they do that process and what's all in that process. I also believe and correct me, we were in a 4th grade kindergarten class, correct? And then a kindergarten class. And then I think it was 1st or 2nd grade with the math, they were learning how to count money. And
Second grade.
Second, and then when they get their money, they can go to the school store and buy stuff, so it brings it home that, not only they learn how to count money, that things do cost money, and mom and dad aren't always going to be there to pay for stuff. So, contrary to what some of my kids think once in a while. But anyways, that's another story. So I just thank you very much. I did enjoy the tour, and it was really neat to see, especially the collaboration part of things.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I attended an event at Lincoln on social media and parenting, put on by Crystal Bates and the school social worker there. It was an excellent program, and just there were a group of parents there that were just really engaged in trying to learn how to best navigate that with their kids. There was a lot of focus on kindness through social media and ways kids can express themselves in an appropriate way. So it was just a really, really good program.
I think it fits in perfectly with some of the other struggles that we're having with social media, so appreciate that. Anybody else? All right. 10.5, 5-year facility plan workshop recap. So I'm just going to provide a high-level summary, allow the board members to add any input they'd like, and then after we're done here, I'll have Anne Marie come up and summarize the presentation. So back on the 15th of November, the board met to review 5-year facility plan. Anne Marie facilitated an update and discussion on that. We basically went back and did a quick review. If you remember back in July of 19, we approved the initial 5-year facility plan with some flexibility. And then in addition, the authority to issue the $5 million of Fund 38 non-referendum debt to basically give us some money to spend on doing those things that were in the 5-year facility plan. We actually then went through and just reviewed some of the completed projects, the closure of South Beaver Dam, renovations of Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington, the bleachers, the press box, the tennis courts, ongoing roofing, and ongoing middle school improvements. Specifically spend a majority of our time looking at specific 2022 projects in the summer, but also a short preview of projects for summer 23, 24, and 25, and other discussions regarding middle school, general land use, and general elementary needs and auditorium lighting updates. So with that, any other comments from the board before I turn it over to Anne Marie? That means I did a good job of summarizing. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Anne Marie.
So, yes, Chad already talked about what was discussed, but I'll just go through this anyway. So, board workshop on the facility plan was held on November 15th. Constructive discussion about short and long-term facility needs of the district. No decisions were made, so no action was taken. It was mostly discussion. The plan would be to have another workshop in spring to continue that discussion and then actually establish a plan for meeting the facility needs of the district going forward. So tonight, what we're looking for is direction on the larger summer 2022 projects that were discussed at the meeting. Part of the reason that we're looking for that direction now instead of next spring is, as we discussed at the workshop, there's long lead times on materials and equipment. So a lot of the companies have said, if we don't put in orders now, we're not going to have them for next summer to be able to do the work. So the other thing is prices are expected to rise in 2022. We've already had some prices where places have said after January 1, the price is going to go up. So if we can book those projects now, we can use the quotes that we already have. So, so these were most of the projects that we had discussed during the workshop. So these are potential projects that could be done next summer. So we discussed Prairie View Elementary, replacing one of the rooftop units, which would be $75,000. So that's an HVAC. And then doing lighting upgrades throughout the school to change over to LED lights. And we had discussed the long-term energy savings money that we would have there that eventually would pay for itself after, I think, like 11 years. But that's the price that we'd be looking at for doing that. And then we discussed the elementary duct cleaning. We've added to that cleaning of the univents. So essentially, we'd be cleaning out all of those. It's something that hasn't been done and probably should be. So we're talking about improving the air quality of schools, which is a huge topic right now. So the cost for doing that at the elementary schools would be $75,000. We had discussed district-wide roofing and targeting the middle school for next year. We had 3 years left worth of incremental roofing projects to get to where all of our roofs would be under warranty. So what we had discussed was the middle school for next year. And then one of the rooftop units at the middle school, also replacing one of those for $75,000. Moving the tech hub, which is currently located at ESC South, moving that to the high school. So the cost to do that would be $250,000, and then raising the ESC and modifying ESC North. So that price tag changed from what we had originally had. Part of that is because we are planning to do the exterior of ESC North in spring to be able to get that into this fiscal year and take advantage of some of the pricing for doing that. So this would not hit next summer, and all of this for next summer would fall into the next fiscal year. So the plan is to do the exterior of ESC North, and then we're currently renovating what used to be the wood shop at ESC North into a classroom. Most of that work is being done internally with our team, but that work will be done in this year. And then not spending as much to modify ESC North. So some of the plans that we had for that, we're going to scale that back and try and do it as efficiently as possible so that we're not putting a lot of money into that building in order to move everybody over there. And then the last two that we had discussed, the new softball field, that was a topic of discussion. And the price tag for that was $850,000. And then we had discussed auditorium upgrades, recognizing that the auditorium equipment is quite old and failing, and it's old enough to the point where we can't get replacement parts for it anymore when we need to fix things. So we had a 3-year plan for replacing that, and this would be the initial year of that plan, which would basically change the lighting system itself. And then over the next 2 years, we would do the AV for next year, and then the actual lighting fixtures in the 3rd year. So these were all projects that we had discussed at that workshop. So what we've done is tried to highlight what we would consider to maybe be the priority projects for this year that we would like to do. Obviously, this is still all up for discussion tonight, but we wanted to bring a plan that we could present and then can discuss and make decisions around that. So, so the things that we highlighted for doing, the Prairie View improvements, so that was the HVAC and the lighting, the duct cleaning, that does include the univents, even though it doesn't say the univents on that one. So it does include that. The middle school HVAC, the one rooftop unit there, and then moving the tech hub to the high school and raising the ESC and doing some modifications to the ESC North. The things that we had put into the discretionary category, one of them was the roofing at the middle school. Couple reasons for that. One, it is a significant price tag, which puts some stress on some of the other projects to do. Also, in speaking with the contractor who he reviewed all of our roofs. He does every year, and he prioritizes projects. He agreed that this one we could put it off another year. And part of the reality with that is, one of his other comments is that being able to even get the materials to be able to do that, we may not be able to make that happen. And so just all of those things combined, it wasn't a priority for next year. We can put that one on pause, so that went down into the discretionary projects. As well as the new softball field, and then the auditorium upgrades as well. So the recommendation that we've put together would be to complete the projects that were identified as the priority projects on the previous slide. So that comes to a total of $850,000. And then one of these two. So new softball field with the auditorium upgrades that were identified for year 1, or resurfacing the track for this summer. So that was on the 5-year facility plan as something to be done next summer. It's been over 12 years since that has been resurfaced. Typically 8 to 10 years is recommended. And we did have damage to it when the bleachers were tipped over and dragged on the track. So that was patched, but still there was damage. So potentially doing that, so moving that up in the plan and pushing off the softball field to not do this year. So recognizing that at some point it would be something that we would need to do. It just doesn't have to be this summer. Along with that, with the track, the auditorium upgrades. So doing the first year of that, and potentially, if it would make sense, to do some additional part from the second year in that. We'd have to see if that would make sense with the phasing of everything, but potentially that would give us the flexibility to do that and make more progress on the auditorium. Along with that, the asterisk, from what we were talking about before, based on supply of materials and potentially costs, recognizing that as we would move forward with some of these projects, it's possible that we would run into roadblocks of not being able to get materials, or we find out that the cost jumped way up. We would ask for the flexibility at that point to be able to press pause on a project if that was the case. Because obviously, if we don't want to move forward if we find out that the price doubled from what we originally expected, because we don't have the budget for that. So, I'll open it up to discussion about what's been presented.
So Anne-Marie, the track resurfaced, so that's just like a hot mix asphalt that goes over the top of it? Like for a road, or what is that?
I'm gonna let,
Or Pete, maybe? Okay, so you're not actually putting asphalt on, because I just know asphalt's gone up like 18 to 20% already, and they're saying it could be a lot higher by spring, so.
Pete, there could be some minor improvements that they make to areas that would need it before they put the rubberized coating back on it, but my understanding is that when the track was done, that they redid the entire base at that time too, so it should still be solid and sound. It's just the coating
Okay,
that
I
needs
didn't
to be
realize there was a
redone.
coating oversight. I learned something tonight. I just thought it was just asphalt, so.
Another question regarding the track. I mean, it sounds like it's been patched and stuff, but I mean, we're not considering it a safety issue at this point. Okay. And my also understanding would be that, I mean, the or statement here would mean that if the board would decide one way or another, the other option would likely show up then the following summer.
at some point, yes.
So my question is, if we put off some of the more expensive things, what happens to our plan next year as we've deferred, a couple more things onto that plan? Are we gonna continually be in a slide then where we're, and I mean, I know we adjust always based on, what we can spend, but are we getting ourselves in trouble as we push things down the road?
No, I mean, extending, we don't have a deadline for completing a number of these things, so extending it out another year or another year after that, I mean, it's fine. It's not gonna come back to get us.
Okay. We don't have any equity problems with not having this softball field in the next year.
We anticipate that we will continue to have access to VOTEC, but that is not because we do use that. That's not on our site, right? That's a resource that we use, but that will not be there forever. And there are likely other plans associated with that convenience that we have right now.
So do I understand, though, that the quality of the fields that we're using for softball are close enough to the quality of the baseball fields that we don't have a problem where we're at today?
Yeah, we have one softball field, we have two baseball fields. That's the issue. We send the kids off-site. It's conveniently located to VOTEC.
Okay.
We maintain the quality or the standard that we have to the best of our ability. None of our fields, when the conditions are perfect, those fields can play really nicely, but they are not high-end fields, none of them. That's just a reality for us. So, but they're comparable, I would say. Pete, would you say that the varsity softball field and the varsity baseball field, when they're in prime condition, are comparable? Yeah.
Okay. And then my other question is, have you looked into the auditorium things at all? That you think you might be able to get it, or do you have no idea if you'll be able to get the equipment that you would need
No,
to
there's
do
a-
that work?
Oh, go ahead. There's a plan. I mean, correct? Jesse can speak to that, but there's a.
If we
that was just the board, not the fixtures themselves.
Well, I think with the use of the auditorium by the community as well as the school district, that's an important thing to make sure we address. This is taxpayer money, like we've talked about, and the taxpayers utilize the auditorium quite, which I can attest to just last weekend. So I would go for that or group, resurfacing the track and doing the auditorium upgrades.
Got a motion?
But I still have an issue with raising the ESC. I can't wrap myself around that, so no, I'm not making a motion.
I don't know if we need one when we're, other than, like, because we're giving you flexibility, we're not telling you you have to. Do we need a motion?
I think the administration is going to look for a motion from us.
Just to do this
To
with
give
the
them some
flexibility?
direction, yes.
Correct. I would hope, I mean, probably that's like a pipe dream, that maybe we could do more than the first 200,000 to free us up a little bit for the more expensive project than the next year. If there's any efficiency to be found in doing a little more, it'd be nice, because that softball field's expensive, and well, I mean, I too have really enjoyed the auditorium. I know that there's a number of people in the community that also enjoy our athletic facilities, whether they're watching family or using them for themselves, and I don't think it's necessarily fair to prioritize one community resource over another, but I would love to see if do the second one and then try to free up as much as we can to come back and attack that first one next year.
Mark, do you see how many people we have working in that building right now? On a routine basis, steady basis. Like, granted, there's a lot in and out and everything else, but like actually probably people there that report every day.
Around a dozen.
Okay. And if we do decide to move that, I'm assuming we have ample space elsewhere in the district for everyone? Because we're already got people that work out of that building in other buildings already, correct?
Correct.
So is there anything that is detrimental to the prep work that was done for the softball field if we do not do it this year?
No, Mr. Warwick indicates no. I agree with them. Just based on some of the conversation from Marge and Joanne, if the board approves anything, I guess I would maybe within that for the auditorium upgrades, if it's appropriate and practical, for the board to give us flexibility to maybe spend more than that if it makes sense, because it's a 3-year phase. So as long as it's within budget,
Right.
and we're able to keep the budget down, that relative to the auditorium upgrades, we could exceed that $200,000 number as long as we stay overall, under budget with our other
Because
projects.
it's part of it, we have to talk a little more about the ESC too. In closing that building, you're looking at the further costs, not this year, but that are coming very shortly down the road with infrastructure in that building. So I think, right now that there's just 12 people working out of there, we have room in our other buildings. It feels to me like a waste of resources to possibly keep a building going that we know doesn't have a lot of, wasn't necessarily a quality construction to start with. We know it has a lot of problems coming up. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. That's my understanding, is where that building stands. Or Pete, or
Yeah, I
whoever,
mean,
or-
right, so there's things that are coming up. I think, whether at roofing, siding for that building as well, HVAC needs, parking lot maintenance, let alone kind of continuing to take care of it, plow it, salt it. So I think we realize that there's some really significant costs associated with those. And we also realize that there's an opportunity to be a little bit more efficient in what we're spending, just overall operations to house the people that we need to, and we can still, with that, accomplish what we need and also return more green space for community use, because, you know, we are the hub for just general space, and that ESC sits there. So we're not putting anything fancy in there, where it's grading, and it would be returned with grass, which provides flexibility. But we have to remember that, you know, whether it be youth or the middle school or the high school, that campus is used by a lot of people. So there's an opportunity to be more efficient with some of our expenditures long-term relative to maintaining buildings, and then also return more space to kids in the community. So I think, I mean, I definitely think there's some advantages, right? And I think that we would be avoiding some more significant costs. And the price point to do what we're talking about is really, really competitive right now. And I think we want to take advantage of that, to remove that site and return it to green space.
Something else, and I don't know if it's just a difference in philosophy or a difference in structure, was this year, a lot of the people that formerly would have been working just out of that building have been working it out of other buildings in the district and actually had more student and staff contact time. And that was one of the things that I was just really excited to see, is that they were out sharing their knowledge with the staff more frequently and thoroughly than when they just hold up in the ESC. And I'm assuming that's something that would continue going forward. So I
We
really
want the
commend you on
resources
that.
with our kids as much as possible. For practical reasons, there's certain things that we centralize, but
I make a motion, we approve the
and-
priority projects for summer of '22, plus resurface track and auditorium upgrades.
I'd like to, before we do that, ask the question of, for the $275,000 that's listed to raise the ESC and modify the ESC North, which dollar amount goes to which thing?
So
Oh,
the
good question.
cost to raise the ESC and plant it, the quote that we got for that was $132,000. And then there was an additional roughly $15,000 for essentially testing and abatement of the property afterward.
Yep.
So roughly $150,000 into taking down that building and planting everything and making sure the site is safe.
Okay.
And then the rest of it, so the other $125,000 was for ESC North.
Which end of that did you feel like you were getting efficiencies by doing it this year? The raising or the work on the ESC North, or both? That you thought you were getting better price by doing it now rather than deferring it?
definitely raising,
Okay.
definitely raising, because it's raising, then it's also grading and seating. That's a very competitive price.
And is the intent at the ESC North that everyone who currently works at ESC is going to have an office space at ESC North, or are they going to be physically located with students?
The people that are currently there would be space for them at the ESC North.
Okay, and is there any reason why we wouldn't locate perhaps, let's say, special ed or those functions in buildings with students?
No, and I think sometimes that's going to depend on the needs. For example, there's, trying to think of the word, there's some itinerant support that, depending on the needs, is placed in buildings, and they might send a certain percentage. Other time, they're exactly where they nest finally, or on a given year, that could look different. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is that we are going to continue to support students at that campus as well for some specialized services. So depending on the nature of the students that we're supporting, there could be a need to have different or new adults there working with those students as well. So it's hard to say for sure it's going to be this exact number every year. And I think we have to stay flexible and make sure that where our people are and what the focus that they're doing is reflective of our priority areas, our strategic plan, our goals as a district.
Okay.
So there could be, there could be some flex, with some of those adults on any given year.
Well, and most of the staff that are still at the EST South that would be moving over are not staff who would work
Student-based.
with students.
Yeah.
So it's the tech department, it's the business office staff, it's HR. So a lot of those positions that are still there wouldn't be with students.
I think the other thing that is important to remember too is that whatever we don't decide to do this year is gonna likely come back next year at a higher cost. So I don't know what the, projected increases would be, but, in my own mind, I'm thinking to myself, maybe it makes some more sense to do a higher amount now than pay more to do that higher amount next year, just from a savings standpoint, but just something to keep in mind.
So what was your motion, Gary?
Do the priority projects for the summer of '22 plus resurface track and auditorium upgrades.
With giving administration flexibility.
All right.
And then what if we would go that route and they come in, so we evidently do have some budgetary numbers here, what it's gonna cost if we come underneath that, to put, if we can do more work with the auditorium, to do more work with the auditorium,
They're
or?
flexible, yeah.
I guess I'll second that.
Anne Marie, I just have one quick question on the auditorium. Since it is used by the community as well, can any of the funding come out of Fund 80? Okay.
Yeah, that would apply to the track as well. if we do
Oh, right.
Some community use of that. It's always based on a percentage, right? When you look at all of these things, how much time you think the community uses it, and how much time the school does? Because you look at that for every project we do, correct?
Yeah, because if we ever got audited, we'd have to be able to prove how much was from which.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, we do have a motion and a second. The motion and the second is for the completion of the priority projects identified at 185, or in 850,000, sorry. And the resurface track and auditorium upgrades, including possibly more if feasible. So that is the motion and the second. With that, I would ask for roll call vote on that motion.
John Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coons?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Chad Krieger?
Yes.
Gary Spearman?
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski?
Yes.
Beth Bailey?
Yes.
Marsh Jorgensen?
Yes.
All right. I believe you have your direction.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else you're asking from the board at this point regarding that? Good? Look at that. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to move into closed session.
Thank you.
I move to recess into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss and possibly take action regarding the employment of a specific employee. We will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move into closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Mary Coons?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Chad Krieger?
Yes.
Gary Spearman?
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski?
Yes.
Beth Bailey?
Yes.
Marsh Jorgensen?
Yes.
John Kraus?
Yes.
So like tomorrow night.
At the high school, and Sarah Gray, literacy support teacher at Lincoln. There's also one resignation effective last Friday.
I move the board approve the retirements and resignation as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second then to approve the resignations and retirements as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right.
I have 2 leaves of absence for your approval this evening.
I move the board approve the leaves of absence as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve the leaves of absence as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those not, same sign. Okay.
There are 4 appointments for tonight. One is Shelley Ellenbeck, substitute teacher, full-time for the elementary schools. That is a LTE position. Laura McCauley, you should note, she's also an LTE contract, substitute teacher at the middle school, full-time position. And then a special education teacher, Tracy Ewing. That would be for our elementary schools. And then a 7th grade math teacher, Michaela Kuhn, who just will be finishing student teaching with us in January.
I move the board approve the appointments as presented.
A motion and a second to approve the appointments as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Maria Mason? Yes. Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Jeff Reed?
Yes.
Peter Spillman?
Yes.
Joanne Chajewski?
Yes.
Beth Bailey?
Yes.
Marge Jorgensen? Yes. John Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coombs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 13.4, board policy update, first reading.
All right, so this is just the first reading, so I'll give you a real quick update. In your board packets, you have policy number 8510. That is the wellness policy. That is the only policy for this first reading. So that policy was slated for review as part of our work with Neola, as well as regulations or requirements to review that around every 3 years or so. In addition to gathering feedback from Neola, Nicola, Nicole and the Wellness Committee, which is comprised of 15 members, have reviewed this. Their recommendations are noted in the policy draft that you have in your board packet. If you have questions, please contact me or Dr. White. That's it. And just for exciting news, hot off the press, Mary and I just scheduled our half-day Neola bash for the winter policy review. So we're scheduled with Richard to go over a slate of policy updates. So you'll be getting more of those in February, I believe, first reading of that whole slate. So any questions on 8510, reach out to myself or Nicole. Thank you.
And it will definitely shorten up that policy, all the.
Yes, yes, they are
We talked
succinct.
about that at
Yes.
meeting.
All right, with that, we will move on to other business, 14.1, payment of claims.
I move for payment of claims in the amount of $3,916,998.44.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the payment of claims as presented. We need a roll call vote, please.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Jeff Reed?
Yes.
Yes.
Joanne Chajewski?
Yes.
Beth Bailey?
Yes.
Marge Jorgensen?
Yes.
John Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coombs?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
All right, with that, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.